All right, everybody, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Today I've got Nick Aalerud on the show and super pumped to talk to him. How's it going, Nick?
Doing great, Danny. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we just talked recently I think it was last week, and had a lot in common. And, just the different things that Nick has done, I'm super excited to dig into because he's done a lot of different things. He's had some failures, and I don't really want to talk to anybody on the show that hasn't had some failures because at that point, it's all fluff at that point because the real stuff happens with the failures, even people that are mostly successful, the failure stuff. But I'm going to give a quick bio for you, for everybody listening about Nick. He's Greater Boston's #1 home buyer, multifamily owner, best-selling author, speaker, mindset, and real estate coach. He and his team have a home buying division in Greater Boston, Southern New Hampshire, where they work to help at least 100 homeowners per year. Property management firm that works to add significant value to investors' portfolios. Do you get a laundry list here? A short sale.
They sent you the long one. You can just skip a lot of that, Dan, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we'll at the end we'll say where people can find out more about you and check out all that stuff, because I think at some point it's just like, whoa, yeah, that's really cool, man. So let's get started with where it all started, though. Let's get back into the beginning of real estate for you and how all that transpired.
Sure, Danny. Sure. We'll suffice to say we're now a vertically integrated organization instead of all those 9 branches that you don't have to read. But how it all started, man. I mean, I was working at a corporate job at Mellon Bank in Boston, and pretty much a glorified bank teller, right? I just got out of school. I graduated with a political science degree, and I realized I had zero future. Didn't want to be an attorney. Didn't want to run for office. Like, what did I just do with myself? So I figured, well, I guess I'll go into banking, right? So I was interested in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and that sort of thing. And they gave me a shot. And I ran a custody floor, and they promoted me like 5 times, and I was overseeing about 30 people, and I was making under $50,000 a year.
Wow.
It's like,
that is
and
crazy.
working nights and working weekends. And I remember working Christmas Day. I was on the foreign trades, and then I got promoted to working on the #1 investment client in the country. And so, of course, now I had to work overtime, right? Nights, weekends, holidays, everything. And that literally was the beginning of it, right? Like, we all start somewhere. And for me, it was like, is this it? And I looked at my boss's boss. I'm like, is that where I want to be in 10 years? And the answer was definitely no, but I didn't know what the other options were. So, I was actually playing a board game one night at my place, and a whole bunch of buddies of mine were there. We're playing the game of Risk. Do you know Risk, Danny?
Oh, I love Risk.
We all do in this industry. Isn't that weird?
That is weird because a lot of people in my family never liked it. I love it, though.
Something with this strategic way to play it. But us political science majors, us nerds, like, that was our only way of getting out, like, trying to global domination and all that stuff, right? So we were playing that game, and I'm pretty good at it. So all of my buddies at the same time ganged up on you. When you get 5 against 1, it gets really difficult. And they knocked me out of the game. And it's like 1 a.m. They're all at my place. I can't kick them out. They're all playing. So I literally turn on the television, and there it is, my first infomercial that I ever saw on real estate, right? Learn to buy real estate, pennies on the dollar. I was like, this is kind of
Babes and the boats and the cars.
That was it, right? That was
it. That's all of them, right?
And this particular one was a tax lien binder. Now, I only bought this as a joke to show all my buddies over there who were, all drinking and having a good time, what happens when, they knock me out and I can't go to bed because they're all being too loud. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to buy infomercials on TV right now. That's what I'm doing. And the binder arrived in the mail. It was $50 and arrived in the mail, and I'm going through it. I'm like, all right, interesting. So there are ways that, real estate's an inefficient market. You can make some different money if you know how to find these things. And then it said, if you're serious about real estate, call this number. It was an 800 number. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm serious. I ordered a binder off a TV commercial. I mean, that's pretty serious. So I called the 800 number, and the best salesperson in the entire world, Danny, talked me into my first $6,000 over the phone coaching sales phone boot camp.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't even have time to do this, right? Because I'm still working more than full time. So it's literally, I would end my shift at around 7 p.m. and I would just stay in the office, like stay in another like private office and just have my coaching calls, set up what they were teaching me with direct mail, get the phone calls going. And it was at that point, it didn't teach me a bunch, like nothing stuck, except they got me to read the book that we all read, right? Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book. That was one of my homework assignments. So read that, light bulbs went off, changed the way I thought, changed the way I was operating. And I started buying all sorts of courses. I became a course addict, right? So course and seminar and gurus. And I went to the learning annex and like, I did it all. I invested about $100,000 in different courses and all sorts of stuff. And I remember like being really angry at myself 6 months later, you know, because now I had invested all this money and I had a perfect 800 credit score and money in the bank. And now I'm a real estate investor, but I haven't done a deal. And I was really irritated with myself. Why can't I do this deal? What's going on with me? So I remember being in the shower. This is what I wrote my book on. So I'm not sharing anything that you guys haven't heard yet, but I want to give all your viewers this in the shower. Just look at this. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, there's a shampoo bottle, but I used to have hair like you a long time ago. And in the shower, like the shampoo bottle, little by little would go down. I'm like, by the time that's at 0, I'm going to have my first deal done. Huh. So every single morning I would get in the shower and it would go down little by little. It would just be like constant, like that was my accountability partner, right? Like, what are you doing today to try to get your first deal? And I remember I'm hustling, and finally, this is the starting of this, right? Finally, a guy out in Minnesota sees me hustling online and on the phones. And he's like, listen, if you're looking to get your first deal done, I have undervalued real estate here. Now, this is 2005, Danny, right? We don't know what a market cycle is. I don't know what, you know, I don't know what I don't know yet. We have undervalued real estate out here. We're lining up tenant buyers that'll pay 20% above market rents because they don't have great credit, but they'll pay above market rent to live there. And in 3 years, they're going to sign a contract that'll cash us out in 3 years, 20% above what we're paying now for these properties. And back then in 2005, you could do a lot of different things that you can't do now. Like one of those is getting significant cash back at closings from sellers. That is totally legal and lenders sign off on it. And so we would contract with these sellers for $500,000 for a single family. And then at the closing, they would give us a check back after we've financed it for about $50,000 and say, hey, thanks. Good luck to you. Right.
Yeah.
All these really smart sellers in 2005 that had probably already been through their market cycles and knew what was about to happen. Right. So I didn't close on one. He needed this partner needed credit partners to sign on the loans. So he had some credit challenges in the past too. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And so I didn't close on one, Danny. I closed on 5 in 1 week. Whoa. My first 5 deals, because my shampoo bottle, right, going down. Like, that's it. I'm going to make all my money back on all of my courses, right, by getting all these chunks of cash back at these closings. The partner took 40%, and we took 60% of this cash back at closings, plus 60% of the rents, plus 60% of the resale values. That was kind of how we structured the deal. So I got all my money back from all these courses, and we then had our phone call lined up with this gentleman to review the next steps, right? So, okay, Monday's coming. When's the tenant's moving in? What are we going to do next? And like, he didn't show up for the call. We're like, that's kind of weird. And then Thursday came around. I say we, because I got a buddy of mine to do this with me. So he bought like 4 and I bought 5 all in 1 week, right? So then Thursday comes around and there's still no talk from this other gentleman in Minnesota. Like, what happened here? This guy took all of his money from the closings, and there were no tenants. He had forged the rental applications. He had forged the P&S agreements. He had done all that. And literally I spent all of my money hiring attorneys to chase him, property managers to try to rent these things out. And ultimately, my first 5 deals in real estate ended up being 4 short sales and 1 foreclosure on my credit report. The perfect little banker kid from Boston, right? 800 credit score, fresh out of school, like learned a whole bunch. I like lost everything in a matter of like 2 months.
Wow. How did you not become so embittered that you decided to never deal with real estate again? I mean, what did you do?
And that was it, Danny. So you know what? I had still paid for, I'll tell you one more added. This is a real thing that is a trauma for me too, because when you go into debt with 10 lenders, you start to get collection calls automated. It was every 38 seconds on my cell phone. I think it was awful. So I just stopped answering my phone, put my phone in a drawer, never wanted to see it again, like turned it off. And that was ultimately, though, right? Isn't that one of the tools we need to build our business is our phone, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize any of that. I just wanted to put, I put everything on ice for about 6 months. I was extremely bitter and extremely angry for 6 months, right? And I can't believe this guy did this to me. Like, I won't
Did anything ever happen with him?
I don't really know. I'm trying not to swear on your podcast because we're from Boston, so we do a lot of swearing. But
Do what you want. It's fine.
no, I know. But it was 6 months later, and I remember I had already paid for, but had not yet gone to one of the courses that I had bought was a hypnotist. I don't know if you've heard of Marshall Silver out of Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a big mindset guy. He's an entertainer, but he's big into the mindset space. I'd already paid for his program. I flew out there. I'm like, well, might as well do with this now. And I remember laying on the ground of his seminar, refusing to believe that I could ever be hypnotized, because who can, that's absurd. Who can do that? But I remember laying there in somewhat of a state of just relaxation, and I was starting to have an argument with myself. And then I started swearing at myself while lying down on the ground, saying, you keep saying this was somebody who did this to you, like F you, this was you. You started without any due diligence on this guy. You didn't know enough about real estate to get going. Once you stop telling yourself that he did this to you, and you start reframing, right, that you are responsible for your own messes, and you are responsible for your next steps, and you're responsible for getting out of this mess, only then can you start healing. And there's a lot of resistance and back and forth, and it's the weirdest thing, right? And I'm sharing this with you. You and I had that conversation last week. I never would have believed in any of this stuff, and I still didn't after this fight with myself on the floor. Yeah. Never thought I was hypnotized. Never thought I was.
Interesting.
And I came back with this. All right, real estate's still my way out of this corporate grind, but I have to take ownership, and I have to own every single thing. And what can I possibly do now that doesn't take cash or credit? Because I didn't have any cash or credit left. And I literally went to my first real estate meeting, right, that I hadn't been to, and I met a guy who was buying triple deckers in Somerville, a city right next to Boston. And he told me what he was looking for, and it took everything to pull that phone back out. It took everything to pull that phone back out. But I, nights and weekends would knock on doors, talk to a lot of tenants, and started making calls again, as I had been trained to do. And I started wholesaling for this guy, and he would pass me $5,000 or $10,000 per contract, until finally 8 months later, I had enough to do my first. I found what hard money was, right? Got a hard money lender and had enough to do my first rehab, which was in Somerville, triple decker, and I broke even. And to me, that was proof of concept. I didn't have to lose everything in the real estate game.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
So that's it. And that became, right, the wholesale experience, the deal flow experience. And then from there, contractor management, rehab, really honing in the details. And, 350 deals later, we try to do about, 100 a year in that space, with wholesales, we have a property management company, as you mentioned. We have a debt negotiation company because of that, because of what I went through. So now we have, people that help in the short sale space. We have a retail brokerage, that has about 40 real estate agents in it that all work on the investor dream as well as retail. And wow. We're looking, vertically integrated, but it's not without its share of challenges. So that's how I started.
Man, that's awesome. So, I want to dig into a little bit more about how you moved into the more due diligence and just like feeling a little bit more confident that what you were doing was, the right direction, where you weren't going to end up losing money. Because at some point in there, you went through the market shift too then, right? What was all of that like?
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. So 2005 is when all that shit happened, right? And 2006 is when I got my wholesaling marketing off the ground and had enough money to start doing my own rehabs. Ultimately, right, we all took a hit, but I learned, because I was so risk averse at that point because of 2005. Like, I had already programmed, what can I do to not lose money? Well, wholesaling, right, is very low risk, but it's all the time and effort and energy in the world. So I'm going to sacrifice all my time, effort, and energy for some low payouts until I can get into that rehabbing or active role. To manage risk, because I was a corporate guy at a bank, the one benefit I got from being in the corporate world was SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures, and coming up with rules and methods. And I knew that if I stuck to the rules that I was creating around buying, that I would have to be okay, because I could not afford to not be okay. I didn't have the cash or credit to not be okay anymore. So, adhering to the standard rules that most people adhere to now, like never be all into a property for, above 75% of value of after repaired value, keeping, making sure, we know that's the ultimate one, and making sure that good school districts, they're in what we call sell-through towns. These are all old rules. These are rules as we're going into a declining market here in the Boston area. I used to figure in a 1% value drop per month of me holding that rehab in order to and put that into my offers, because that's how the market was shifting over here.
Yeah.
And I think by learning how to do all that in the declining market, I mean, it helped me tremendously, right? I mean, if we continued to use those principles, then as the market started to flatten out and then it started to rise again, we had to adjust, but at the same time, we're also more conservative than probably more of the buyers in our market. And we make up for that by offering a all-in-one seller solution, right? So we're not just there to make an offer and run away. We're there to provide a tremendous amount of value aside from our prices when we go to meet with these sellers, which they find that they like.
Yeah. So what other things are you offering?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, so when we go and approach a home seller, the very first expectation we even give them, Mr. Seller, this is how it's going to be today. We're going to be walking through the house and just talking a little bit about what we already chatted about over the phone. I'm going to be doing a kind of walkthrough and doing some construction estimates on this paper here. And if at the end, if this makes sense, we'll sit down and discuss possible options that we can work with you on that. But you know what, I got to tell you right now, it's totally okay if that doesn't work out. And we'll both agree at that point if it even makes sense to have that sit down at the end of it. But I will say, our goal here today is not necessarily to get a contract signed. Our goal here, Mr. Seller, is ultimately to make you feel listened to, heard, and acknowledged. So I'll tell you right now, I am judged when I get back to my office on whether or not I have given you a good experience here today. And I get a bonus if you're even able to give me a video testimonial, even if we can't do a contract today.
Oh, wow.
Is that fair to ask you? Like, we're all about the relationship, right? All about the relationship. So what other things do we offer? I mean, we offer a lot of the same what most people do, besides just the as is, cash fast, like what every other investor offers. We have a whole like move out program, right? Like where we align them with our movers, and we have professional counselors that'll work with them if they're if they're hoarders and they have trouble keeping their things organized and don't know how to pack, right? We have obviously storage facilities that we help move them into. We have a whole company that helps them relocate into a place where they can fit, right? They fit in when they're downsizing. So it's everything else. And that's one of our questions too. I'm not really worried about the price, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We're one of the highest ones around. What we find that kills deals is everything else around. We don't say deals, right? What kills purchases is everything else around it, right? Like, let me ask you some more questions. Like, do you have a place to go, right? Is there anybody else in your family that's causing you some stress right now? Are there any debt or collections agents that are causing you stress? So it's all about going around the number.
We'll take them out for you.
Yeah, we'll take it. We know an Italian buddy in the North End. We'll get him. But that's it. I'm obviously passionate about it, right? Like relationships over deals every single day.
That's awesome, man. I love that approach. And I've never heard that before, of getting a testimonial, even if you're not buying the house. I mean, obviously you guys are posting those, right? On your business pages online and stuff, right? Like,
yep.
That's awesome, man. That's a quick way for even somebody that's new, if they can, work their magic enough to be able to pull that off like you just did. But I think it is possible to build up some of that rapport. And those video testimonies don't have to say, you don't have to have the seller lie about it. They just say what kind of experience they had, and that's all you need. That's awesome.
That's it. The videos don't always happen, right? But at least we let them know that they're in for a feedback request, right? Like, we would love some positive feedback, just like a customer service. Like Geico, if you've ever been on the phone with Geico, they're like making damn sure you're going to give them a 10, because I guess they get penalized if they don't. No. Just so you know, a 10 really helps. Anything less than a 10 is not good, but a 10 really, really helps. Like,
I've got a family to feed. Help me.
Yes.
That's awesome, man. So you also you have all of that, but you also have the Shut Up and Do It podcast,
Indeed.
right? And why did you start that? What's it all about?
Love it, Danny. I mean, so it literally started with the experience I just shared with you in 2005. And it was when I needed to get my phone out for the first time ever. As we just talked about, it was actually very traumatic. And it's ridiculous to say to a bunch of people because no one really can understand what that's like unless their phone going off is literally just a sense of stress to them, right? Which it was to me, like not just stress, but like trauma, like serious. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, it's time for me to make my calls. It's time for me to get my phone out. I'm going to get my phone out. But before I do that, let me go back to my guru script and just make sure I have the right scripts laid out. Make sure I have my notepad out. Make sure I have my little sticky notes where I can refer to things, and my little calculator just in case I talk to somebody. Let me make sure my laptop's pulled up to the right screen and that I have everything pulled up. Okay, that's all good. Well, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I get the right list here because I think I had this list I didn't pull from last week. It's the week before. I would do everything, Danny, to not
Hmm.
make phone calls.
No,
I would
yeah, I
do
get it. Yeah.
I would do anything to not make phone calls. I would do anything to, it wasn't just phone calls, it was procrastination in general, right? So literally that voice came to me as I'm going through this ridiculousness of setting up my desk just right to be able to make my calls, like making sure my paper clips are aligned on my top left of my drawer. Why do I do that? I don't know. So literally in my head was just yelling at me, just like it did on the day of the hypnosis thing, like shut up and do it. Shut up and just do it. Like forget all your excuses, forget your procrastination, forget all that. And that has served me through every what I call reset button in my life, right? Like you and I both were very vulnerable with each other on the last episode, and I appreciated that. Like every single time we've had a setback, it requires me to own it and then to get back up on the horse. And the faster, the more I can shrink that time down to like minutes instead of what started as 6 months, right? For my very
Hmm.
first ordeal. If I can shrink that down to 5 months and then 3 months and then 1 month and then a week and then a day and then realize it's spending any time feeling sorry for myself or any time feeling like a victim doesn't serve me.
Hmm.
If it, and that's why I have this saying plastered all over my walls at my office, all over my laptop, right? All over everywhere I have it. And it's for me. It's not for anybody else. And yes, the podcast was started, deep down, my intuition said to start it and is to share everybody else's struggles. Because as you mentioned, top 1% of everyone's social media accounts is their top 1% of their life, right? And then no one talks about being real. And everyone can talk about how real estate's an amazing industry and it makes more millionaires than any other industry it does. And I absolutely still agree with that. But no one talks about the chart to get there is not straight up. No one talks
That
about
doesn't
any,
sell.
no, it doesn't sell. And no one also talks about when you have that initial fall, how many people actually quit, right? Like 90% of people will quit here. And it's the people who can reset faster and reset and take the lessons and move on, right?
Hmm.
That's how we get to where we want to be.
Nice, beautiful. Yeah. How many episodes you're up to on that one?
On the Shut Up and Do It podcast, I think we're close to 100.
Impressive. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's impressive. It's just a matter of, finding really good people like yourself, to
Well,
be
you know how
honest.
many people start a podcast, do about 10 episodes, and then just like quit? I mean, there's like a podcast graveyard somewhere with all of those, right? Like it's, but anyway, yeah, no, it's really cool to that message, and then just the shut up and do it, because that is definitely something that even I need to remember from time to time. I should plaster up on my walls. You had said something too about something with the SEC had happened.
Yes, my brush with the SEC.
The brush. So
Yes.
you had a brush that had SEC on it, right?
I did, sure. Do you want me to go into that now? I'm
Yeah, I
happy
want to
to.
find out about it.
I am 100% transparent, as you'll find, right? Um, so 2006, to fast forward to that moment, I was able to start my rehab, right? My fix and flip branch of the company. And then I had a wholesale and fix and flip company going. And because of my rules, and because I no longer was afraid to shut up and do it and just, bang through our marketing. And then I started building a team, right? I had my fix and flip and wholesale division going pretty well. And in 2009, it was now running. I still needed to be very active day to day, but it was running, with a few office members' help that I had in the office. Now was the time I'm like, all right, what's my next level? Like, I had taken one of my old guru courses that I'd taken was a national multifamily syndicator course, right? So I'm going to get into multifamilies, but not just, he said not to go for 6 and 8 and 12 unit buildings. He said, go bigger, faster. So I'm going to jump into like 150, 200 unit buildings all over the place. It's going to be good. So I started marketing to a market in North Carolina that I had pinpointed. And it was I got my first one after all my marketing. I had a 144 unit in Asheville that I was looking forward to. I was working with the seller, and we started collecting the documents, and we started to, I had investors that had already, expressed interest of investing in one of my deals. So I talked to them like, a year prior when I was starting to work the multifamily circuit like that. So long story short, that deal died because of due diligence. But if it didn't die because of due diligence, I'll never forget this lesson. I called one of those investors that I'd already spoken to, and I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, we're getting close to closing on this deal, and, wanted to really appreciate it. And can we still count on your, 100,000 that you had offered me, 10 months ago? And he said, who is this? He forgot who I was, because I had not paid, I had just gotten the commitment, but then I hadn't never followed up, didn't put him on into a CRM, didn't have a newsletter, didn't have anything. Right. And so if it didn't die in due diligence, it was going to die because of lack of equity raise that I could do. All that to say, there were a few people in the Boston area that saw me out hustling. And just like what happened in Minnesota, right? They reached out to me and they said, hey, listen, we've already got 700 units and we're coaches for that national guy that already taught you. So, all the backups, and we can help fill in the blanks for you. Why don't you help us raise equity, and we'll share with you the operational side. We'll share with you kind of how we manage day to day. We'll share all this stuff with you. I was like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Let's do it. So, I didn't raise a ton of equity, but I put a bunch of my own money in. I put a family member's money in. I think I raised like 280,000 for their next deal that they had, which wasn't a ton of money, but it's a lot of money to anybody, right? To one person, that's a crap ton of money. But to a syndication that's raising like $1 million, it's not. So raise the equity. And then I got a call from one of those 3 GPs, and he called me. He said, hey, listen, not a big deal, but the, SEC just called. We're totally cooperating with them. We don't know what they're looking for, but they're going to call you next. So, good luck. And he hangs up the phone. I'm like, what? This is one of the GPs. Like, I'm supposed to do what he tells me. He's like my boss, right? Like, I'm just, a vendor. I'm really a contractor operating on their behalf, helping to raise equity, and they're paying me in equity in the project, right? So when I bring some money, which is now totally illegal, right? But back then that was, that was what I knew. So the SEC called me, and they had me on the phone for 3 hours while I was pacing in my old real estate office. I still remember the pacing back and forth. And I'm like, just answering, their questions. Where did you get this information from? Where did you send this email from? Like, how did you know this person? So I'm answering all their questions honestly, because I had no reason not to. And at the end of 3 hours, I'm sweating. I'm like, do I need an attorney for this? And the answer was, do you feel you need an attorney, Mr. Aalerud? I'm like, oh my God, like sweating bullets. I'm like, I have to, I'm sorry. I'm like, I want to cooperate, but like, I don't know where I'm at, and I got to hang up the phone. So we lawyered up, and a 12-month unknown battle ensued, right? Because I don't even know what's going on. They don't tell you.
Yeah.
And so I literally, the subpoenas and depositions. And I was told immediately by my attorneys, like, don't talk to the GPs. Don't talk to these 3. Like, they're the enemy right now. I'm like, well, they're not the enemy. I know these guys. Like, they're good guys, and they're coaches for this national guy. And they're like, nope, don't do it. So for 12 months, all that happened. And I remember just being so frustrated because you still had no idea what happened, even at the deposition, right? Like, we found out like almost towards the end, after 10 months later, that I was a witness that an investor had made a complaint based on, we don't know why, to them. And one complaint, right, launches a full-scale investigation. And the investigation has to turn up with something, right? So, and they did. They found commingling of funds from one property to another. They had rough evidence that one of the GPs had purchased one of their primary vehicles with investor funds. That's a no-no. And all that to say, the three of them, one of them was an attorney. The three of them were asked to never do business in Massachusetts again. They were all fined $300,000. But here's the problem. I believe they lost all the assets. So at least my money never came back, right? So my money was gone. My family members' money was gone. Two other people's money was gone that I had represented that was a good investment too. That was awful. So that was my brush with the SEC. Was I wasn't the guy doing the bad work, but I helped and aided a group of people that I still don't know if they did anything maliciously, but you can't make mistakes when you're playing that big.
Yeah.
So they're no longer working, although one of them is still an educator in the multifamily space. So I caution people to find out who their educators are when they're buying these guru courses. What have they done
everybody asking, Nick was taught, have you ever worked with Nick?
That was that one.
Yeah, man. I don't know how you're attracting that kind of stuff.
To fast forward, right? Put my head back. I hate leaving it on a negative. Put my head back down to the single family space, and I said that sucked. And I was like, I'm the rehabber again. I'm wholesaling again. I'm fine. And I only got back into the multifamily space 5 years later in 2016 when I was finally financeable again. Because remember, 2005 impacted me for 10 years. So finally, 2016, I could finally get bank loans again. And that's when I finally made small steps back into, 6 unit here, 12 unit here, 18 unit here. And only now are we back doing larger units. But my big lesson there, I have a lot of lessons there. One of the lessons that I took from that is you can't just jump into 200 units. Like you can, but you can learn so much more by going through your own process, right? Like by just, you can trust the wrong people for sure. But now that I've trusted the wrong people, it doesn't mean I won't ever trust again, right? And now that we're here, it's like, okay, now I have so many more people and lessons to draw upon when I get, like, right now we're taking down a $4.2 million portfolio. Like that would have been unheard of even 5 years ago for me. But now that it's here, we have all these experiences and all these people and all these relationships that I can just make 3 phone calls and we're good to go,
Yeah. So do you think that, for anybody out there, just starting with the smaller deals gets you to the point where you're making the mistakes at digestible levels that aren't going to disrupt you so much that it really takes up a lot of your bandwidth to be able to do much of anything really. Totally. And not looking at it, because I guess it's even like, just looking at something that seems almost too good to be true, right? I invest this money, I'm going to get this crazy return and learn the ropes to do these huge deals. And, is that really something that's likely, or somebody really just looking for an easy way to get all that money?
There it is. And I didn't put in the work, right? So I really feel like to get what we fully need to out of all of these amazing opportunities that come to us, we have to put in the work for a certain amount of time. And if we jump in too early, right, that's where we get a little hurt, we get burned, or we don't learn as much as we could out of the situation. I do know people who've jumped into, I knew one guy who was doing 50 flips a year, and he just jumped into the multifamily space by making a decision. He snapped his fingers and fired all of his team and said, I'm going to do 150 unit buildings. And he did. Like, he totally committed and focused on that. But I also feel like he learned his lessons for 12 years. Yeah. Right. Like he learned a bunch of different lessons that he needed to implement.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. Yeah. It's when you just try to make the easy way of jumping into something without all of, the education and having people around you that can help keep you from doing something, to give you the right questions to ask with who you're getting involved in. Cause those kind of deals, there's going to be quite a few people involved, right?
Amen. Yes. Yes, indeed. Like the 4.2 million, we have, 2 strategic partners, and we have, 2 more primary capital partners. And but yeah, we have, an operations team and a management team and an asset management team, and we've got everybody we need. We didn't have any of that in 2011. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite? You've done a lot in the business and you continue to do a lot in the business. What do you enjoy the most?
I always love putting together strategic deals, but I feel like now and you and I shared this again in our podcast, right? I feel like now it's really about impact. So what can I do this week that provides the biggest amount of impact in changing someone's life?
Hmm.
That could be making sure my team has touched, 15 to 20 to 25 motivated homeowners, right? That need our help. That's not just buying their home, but it's like connecting them with financial resources, connecting them with credit repair, connecting them with people that they need to be connected to reset their life, to go through their own reset button.
Hmm.
Or it could be, right, pouring into, we have similar to you guys, and we have a coaching platform. I love, love, love being able to pour into that, because talk about someone who's, either has no job or is in the corporate grind like I was, and is just looking for a way to change their life, but also change others in the meantime.
Hmm.
I love real estate as
Yeah,
as
that's
a
cool.
tool, right? As a tool to do all that. So I love just pouring into anything I can do to provide more impact on a day-to-day basis. That's kind of the question I ask myself every week. What's the best thing I can do this week?
Oh, I love it. So what are you looking to do in the future now? I mean, do you have any longer term plans or any kind of exit strategy for anything? I mean, what are you going to do?
Sure. Yeah. I have a finite goal and an infinite goal, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Sinek. He talks about the infinite game, as he calls it.
I haven't heard that. No.
Yeah, no, it's a game that you can't be won, but it's a game that's supposed to carry on beyond me, right? So the infinite game, I'll go through that first. Our infinite game is we want every willing individual to understand their financial options, right? To understand their financial path to wealth. So that could mean, right, from my own team, right, our own real estate teams here in the Boston area. It could be our motivated sellers. It could be some tenants that need some help paying rent. It could be landlords that have no idea how to manage property. Every single one of these people that we touch, there's an opportunity to plug them into what we're going to do as a bigger wellness cause. Like our vision is to put up financial wellness centers all the way across the country, and have them just come as a retreat, which is going to focus on their finance. But as you and I know, Danny, it's a lot more than finance that's going on, right?
Yeah.
It's to focus them on really getting them centered and back into where they need to be in order to then attract what they need to attract. And then restructuring and mechanics are easy, right? It's getting people to think and be a certain way, which is not as easy.
Yeah.
So
Wow. I love the name of that too. Financial wellness centers. That's really cool. So explain a little bit then, but you said, you and I understand this, but explain what you mean by getting them into a place mentally. What is that all about?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to go a little deep, right? Your Flipping Junkie podcast is amazing in real estate, just like mine. Real estate people are focused on it, right? But I think I'm so thankful that you and I went into that conversation last week, because it's very rare to find. I feel like it's rare, but it's probably more common than I think, to find someone else that has gone through so many challenges. And part of the challenges, and part of even me talking about coming back from 5 deals, 4 short sales and a foreclosure, coming back from an SEC investigation, or coming back, from a luxury home gone bad that, wiped me out of 3 years of cash reserves, right? Like coming back from that structurally and systematically is the easy part. Okay, I have to come up with these rules to come back. But coming back with your mindset and knowing what you need to do on a day-to-day basis that's not business oriented to get back to a good place. Because even just 3 years ago, I would have thought it's all mumbo jumbo, right? Getting up in the morning, making sure we take care of our physical bodies, making sure we're taking care of our mental capacities, right? Like, what am I going to focus on, and what am I going to think about that I want to come true? But conversely, what are stories inside my head right now that are not serving me anymore? What do I have to let go of? Right? Like what is something that I knew to be true in my past that has turned out to be false? I have so many of those, but they were true, right? I knew for a fact that I needed to stay in a house with my ex-wife because of my children for the next 18 years, because that was going to benefit them, and at all sacrifice to me and to the health of the family. I knew that to be true.
Yeah, I get that one. Yeah.
Yes, I know you do. That's what I love it, right?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden a new reality opens up, and you're like, I never knew this even existed. I had to go through like a pit to get here. I had to figure out uncertainty and figuring, oh my God, I'm homeless, and what do I do? And is this, are my kids thinking about this every single night and they're crying and, the ex is, oh my God, like if I knew 2 years ago what my life would look like, but you don't, right? And it's all about what am I supposed to do every single morning, regardless of what else is going on, to try to right my own ship.
Hmm.
And if I focus on those 8 things every single day, right? Like those are things that will right my ship. Even if everything else is falling down around me, I've done my 8 things. That's all I can do today. Like, and
Well,
everything else
I mean,
comes.
have you mentioned the 8 things?
No, no. And I feel bad if I'm repeating myself. So just tell me, but, we have, my 8 things, and I don't hit all 8 every day, but, I strive to. So my 8 things, number 1 is physical body, right? Which would be, you have to sweat, right? You have to sweat for 30 minutes a day. So whether that's, the jog or the walk or the running or a fitness routine in the house, or you go to a gym, whatever it is. So you have to sweat. And usually for me, that's 30 minutes. I usually try to spend an hour.
Hmm.
Another thing is putting something of nutritional value in your body, right? So to some, that's a green smoothie. To some, it's supplements and nutrients. I fast a lot. So for me, it's just making sure I get my nutrients in,
Hmm.
getting my pills in. So those are the 2 for body. Then I go into what, is called, and I attribute a lot of this, by the way, to a group. It's called Warrior out in California. So I don't want to say I came up with this, because I did not come up with this. The second 2
It's
is
always
on
cool to
your,
hear somebody's personal experience with it, though. So
yeah, exactly. Like I wish I came up with it, but we all have to go through a dark place to then find this, right?
yeah.
So next 2 is more for being. So every day I need to be meditating. And when I meditate, I'm not there for hours or 1 hour. Like I'm usually there for like 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes I get a lot out of it. Sometimes I don't. And that's okay. It's about the process and doing it, right?
Mhm.
So 10, 20 minutes or 25 minutes, usually even meditation. And then I finish it up with a journal afterwards. Journal can be electronic, like talking to myself into like a 5-minute journal app on my phone, or I can literally pen and paper some things out that I'm thinking about, just to kind of work through some stuff in my head. So those are the 2 for being. Then it moves into um, balance, which is also relationships. You're supposed to kind of like make deposits into your loved ones, and we don't do that enough, right? So every single day, if you can make a deposit, you'll have a bank to withdraw from when you're having a really bad day. So every time I can like reach out to whether it's, a girlfriend or my kids or even my mom and dad, God bless, they're still around. Like, I know most of my friends don't have mom and dads anymore. I can reach out to them, just give them a note of, so happy you're here. Like, here's what I'm thinking about. Like, would love to I want you to know that you're appreciated.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's amazing. You know what I did that for, Danny? I'll tell on a little tangent. I was forced to do that. I was having a really, really, really bad time with my battle with my ex, right? And I remember talking to one of my coaches, and the coach said, "Listen, here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to journal about how angry she makes you. I don't want you to journal about, how she's triggering you and this and that. Like you're doing that every day anyway." He says, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to journal once a day for the next 15 days, a gratitude journal.
Hmm.
One thing you're thankful for her every single day. And then I want you to take a picture and share that with her." I was like, "Are you crazy?" It was
Wow.
insane, right? And meanwhile, like she's she's trying to take everything. We talked about that, right? Like, and I'm sitting here, okay, what's one thing I'm grateful for? I'm gonna write a paragraph on it. I'll take a picture and send it to her. And the first 3 or 4 were met with complete venom and hatred and everything that I thought. But all of a sudden, day 5, she's like, what are you doing? Like, what is this?" And I'm supposed to not respond, and I shouldn't expect a response. But that was such a powerful exercise, because at the end of that day 15, right? Like a lot of the battles, I'm not saying this is the cause, but a couple of the battles that she was fighting tooth and nail seemed to kind of lessen or drop away. Doesn't mean we still weren't fighting, because we were fighting tooth and nail, but it was like really interesting to me that I now had a different perspective. And apparently she then had a different perspective on what
Wow.
happened. So anyway, that's the journals.
Yeah, it's like
And then,
love wins, right? I mean, it's always it's that thing. I think there was a book called True Love that I had read, sort of, from a Buddhist, and you're talking about repeating even a mantra of wishing people well, even your enemies, and just
I
doing
love
that
it.
over and over again, and how that just shifts your mindset out of the whole thing it's caught up in that's really not serving you. You had said that before. It's like, what is all this serving me or not? right? You know, it may feel good, like it might feel good to vent that or feel that anger or frustration, but then like, what is it really serving me?
Amen.
Yeah, it's good
Amen.
stuff, man. This is really good
And
stuff.
yeah,
So
learning to drop. The last two, just to finish off, are finally business related. And they're the last on purpose, right?
yeah,
Because if the first three are not in line, you can't, you're going to always be stuck at a certain level in the business frame. So the last is to read or discover something new about your business or something in the future that you're trying to do, or whatever you're supposed to learn something. And then the last one is share. Are you sharing with your teams or your groups or your social media, or
hmm,
share what you learned, or share something of value to others for that day? And those are the 8.
nice. That's cool, man. Well, I think we're running out of time here. So if you want, if anybody out there is listening, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to find out some more after this conversation that we've had, gone through the wins, the losses, and then what came from that. And I really do believe that without that, you wouldn't be at this place you are now and continuing on and seeing some path to an interesting life, I think. Right. Like a fun with its ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, but a real life, right? Not a numbed out sit down, watch TV at the end of every single day and repeat the same crap over and over for years, wondering where it all went at the end of it.
You just put it perfectly, more perfect than I could ever have done that.
No,
Living a
that's
life
great.
by default, right? Absolutely.
Oh, right, right. Living life by default. Don't do it. Awesome, man. So if anybody, yeah, if anybody, where should they, how can they find you?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, they can check out. We have an episode with Danny coming out, the Shut Up and Do It podcast, which is it's shutupanddoitrealestate.com. We're changing that website around right now, so we're hoping that it's up by the time you see this. And you guys everyone can check out. Our company is aarealestategroup.com. They can check us out there, or they can always Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, Nick Aalerud. I'm all over the place, so they can find me at those places too. But yeah, I'm very passionate now about talking about business. Is certainly like fun and it's a game, right? But now it's like everything else is the hard stuff, really. That's good. What we're about. So this was a great opportunity, Danny, to come on with you and be deep. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I do too. Well, thanks a lot, man. We'll keep in touch. I'm sure once I stop recording, we'll talk a little bit more, but all right.